or make that sound bad.
Yeah, but you are right in that when it's come down to it, he has diverted a little bit away. His pattern was kind of early on. He stuck to the aggro, even in Specialist Week. He brought Weapon Rogue in a meta that was almost infested with control decks at that point, priests and a few other things scattered around, a few tempo mages as well. However, he quite clearly stated after submission in the first week of round robin that he submitted a slower lineup just so he didn't get pegged as always submitting aggro every single week. Then he defaulted back to aggro for a couple of weeks after that. But then as it was looking like he was, kind of odds on almost for relegation at one point, he did start to divert away, from the face hunters and the weapon rogues and all of these other things and start to bring more and more of what you would consider the vanilla good decks in his lineup to this is the point now with basically everything on the line where he has one of the most vanilla lineups that we've seen from him so far with just Warrior, Mage, Priest, Demon Hunter.
Yeah, and we are going to dive into the first game here, Demon Hunter or AyRoK, and that Bunnyhoppor is going to be on, I guess, Bunnyhoppor's signature deck for me, honestly, so at least of this season. I think when I think of Secret Rogue, I do just think of Bunnyhoppor. He's the player who I saw bring it the earliest, or at least memorably to me. Might not be factually true, of course. I'm sure someone will let me know. But for me, Bunnyhoppor was one of the first players I saw play it and commit to it. And his win rate reflects his skill with this deck. And I guess how much he likes this deck as well, because he has been performing extremely well with it throughout the whole of the Grandmaster season.
Absolutely, yep. But if there's one deck, having just said that AyRoK is kind of diverted away from good old-fashioned aggro, if there's one deck that he should feel relatively comfortable on, it is this Demon Hunter, because, boy, is this still just a deck that gears up some damage and goes face. And we can see how explosive it can be. I think that game from Psycho we just watched is a perfect example where he really did nothing for 7 turns, and then it was just one double lapidary turn that basically straight up ended the game with all the damage that came down. So even if the damage isn't consistent and constant in the way that Face Hunter damage is, it can still output damage with the best of them. So hopefully AyRoK is able to harness the power here.
Yeah, and although he doesn't have the most aggressive opening ever with his hand, he does have an opening that works versus Rogue, right? Soulshare next turn activates the Shard Shatter for turn 3. It does mean that you can bat away some of these early minion pushes that Rogue has a tendency to make. So, again, not great, not really what you want as the Demon Hunter, but at least there's a plan that you can enact as opposed to saying, oh, my hand's like double skull Soul Shard Lapidary. This is a problem. It's playable cards.
We've had this exact situation come up once today already. As I explained, I do not like casting the Soulshare in this situation. Even though it is mana efficient, it gets shards into the deck very nicely when you have a hand that requires some shards in your deck because of the threat of Coin Questing Adventurer on the following turn. Four questing coming down in the early game, turn 3, turn 4, somewhere around there is pretty common in the matchup.
Yeah, it's normally step 1, isn't it? Make the Demon Hunter have something pretty impressive. Still a tough turn, though. And Bunnyhoppor, one reason I really like watching him play this deck is he always surprises me with what he goes for, because I am taking the general assumption that most of the time what he goes for is just correct, or at least more correct than what I would do. And he does take these different approaches. We talked a few weeks ago just about the amount of times he was actually just daggering up over some options he had on turn 2. They just go for the secret this time.
I grow impatient.
Does give up the dirty tricks immediately, though, which I don't think is a given there. It's definitely something that you have to think about. Obviously, we know it's dirty tricks. AyRoK doesn't, so he has to consider the range of options. But it does mean that the mother of all questing adventurers is now possible on this turn with the extra resources that came down. Coin, Wand Thief, Shadow Step, Wand Thief, Shadow Step, Wand Thief, Vendetta. Yikes.
Insane. AyRoK is playing a Consume Magic in his list. There's a chance. But without that Consume Magic, I want to call the game too early, Saul, but if Bunnyhoppor goes all in on this questing like he, I think, should do, because it's not even, doesn't feel all in, 'cause he's generating resources while he's using these Shadow Steps,
Right.
then AyRoK is just simply going to need that Consume Magic.
I love this mentality from Bunny on these picks. This is so smart, and it's something that I was about to bring up, is that he's picking options as if the questing is going to get silenced this turn. I think a lot of people there would have got excited by like a Pexis Blast or whatever else that can just end the game alongside the questing. If this questing is still big and growing next turn, you do not need more damage to back that up to end the game. You're just winning. What you need is ability to go long if the Consume Magic is there and you have to reset for a longer game plan. So that's why Vaporize was picked up over Pexis Blast, for example.
Yeah, support cards, really, is what you're looking for, right? And right now, AyRoK might have to just start going. I think he has to just put the damage in, play the Shard Shatter, hope that it doesn't die, even though we can see it dies in about 800 different ways. But it sounds bad, but I don't really know what else the plan is supposed to be. He does 4, puts the question on 4, gives him the slimmest of chances, although not realistically. It's like a 0.1%, but I think this is the play if we're going to talk about it, right? It's the best terrible option.
Yeah. Like, if there was an alternative that turn, I might have advocated for it. Like, say there was a play where you just, like, equipped Marrow Slicer or something.
Sure,
and then you just said, like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw Consume Magic next turn. And I'm just going to make the best play this turn based on the fact that I am drawing Consume Magic next turn. But there's just nothing else for him to do that turn, so he might as well just throw out the Shard Shatter.
So many options.
And same again, if you had any option of card draw whatsoever that turn, you just go for it. Because it could, but he didn't. So yeah, just going to make the best play he can. Now there's an 8-4 for Bunnyhoppor. So questing a little bit more susceptible, even with a turn from Bunnyhoppor. You know, a couple of Twin Slices and a Blade Dance, it could happen.
Dirty Tricks, Frostbolt the face, Vendetta the minion. 3 cards here is really nice because one of the breakpoints that occurs to me on 5 mana here would be Soul Shear and second Shard Shatter from the opponent, which would deal 6 total damage. So playing 3 cards gets you up to 7. Yep, love all of this. Love every last little thing about that turn.
And that's nothing. And that honestly means this is almost certainly just lethal next turn. Or is close enough to it. Because it gets to the point now, if Consume Magic wasn't drawn this turn, I don't think it matters if it's drawn next turn or not now. So because it's just done it's what? Probably done another 13 to 14 damage. Your opponent's on 1 or 2 health. Like, Consume Magic won't make a difference. AyRoK, of course, going to play it out. Can't blame him. So does he like Arcane Breath Secret Passage this turn at all? I guess more realistically, you can just play the Mummy with the Arcane Breath, right? Push 13, leave a Mummy on board.
Yep. That was my first play this turn. Yeah, I was going to say, when you suggested the Arcane Breath Secret Passage, I was going to say, if you Secret Passage, I think you just Secret Passage. I don't think you even play the Arcane Breath.
Get back in the hand. Play a second quest in. More realistically than Neophyte. But still, either way, any option would have been good. This game is simply over. You know me, Saul, I like to be positive and try and see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's more like a dead end of a cave here for AyRoK.
And the ultimate slap in the face. Skull off the top, comes into the far right on the usually perfect turn 6, but the Cult Neophyte is going to lock it out. It was a one game either way, but any tiny chance that AyRoK had of getting out of this with like Consume Magic, Warblades plus attack buff on that turn off Skull was just snatched away by the Cult Neophyte.
Consume Magic, Warblade, Blade Dance, right? Would have been perfect.
Yeah.
So clear the board and he gets to heal. that would have actually been a thing that would have, crazily enough, put him back in this game, but wasn't to be. And AyRoK, like an honourable player he is, going to go out the true way of just face tanking a 14 attack Western Adventurer. Absolutely insane game there for Bunnyhoppor. I don't want to say nice and straightforward as a negative thing for Bunnyhoppor by any means, but as long as he kept his head there, a pretty straightforward victory there.
Yeah, it looked like a game with 0 decisions in it, but there was one decision, one really, really crucial one, and that was the decision to activate the Dirty Tricks immediately. If it was Dirty Tricks, again, we knew that AyRoK didn't. It could have been plagiarized, in which case just playing one card to get plagiarized out of the way is actually a very good play. However, it being Dirty Tricks, that's what fueled all of the extra Shadow Steps and Vendetta and everything else into Bunnyhopper's hand for him to be able to pop off immediately. As it happens, I think the questing still got big enough initially that it would have just been out of range of anything that could have been thrown at it straight away, and it still would have grown and scaled. It's just maybe there was one more turn of survival in there, maybe for AyRoK, if the extra resources weren't there immediately. Unlikely to have an impact, but I always want to just take a look at things that could have changed, even if they weren't likely to actually change the outcome.
Right, because if it wasn't Dirty Tricks, it was Plagiarized, which gives Chaos Strike, which is obviously a card to then draw another card for Bunnyhoppor. Obviously, mana costs come into it, of course, but still, yeah, I think it was just going to be a lost game there for AyRoK. So he's currently 0-1 behind Bunnyhoppor, getting a win on that Rogue and continuing to skyrocket that Rogue win rate for him this season. But for now, we are going to go to a quick break while we get ready for game number 2, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
ちょっと常に10分遅れるか常に20分早くってさ、何その
待ち合わせに10分早く
常に10分遅れるか20分早くなるかで選ぶとしたら20分早く着くことは選びます。
항상 10분 늦는 게 더 좋은 것 같아요. 다른 사람도 꼭 늦는 사람이 있어서 항상 저는 10분 늦겠습니다.
常に10分遅れるか常に20分早いかだと常に20分早い方です。ただ仲が良くなると10分遅れ始めます。
我的话通常都是可能早个5到10分钟到。如果是早20分钟的话，那我还是宁愿晚10分钟到。
待ち合わせに10分遅れるか20分早いかでいうと最近は早く着くようになりました。
이게 똑같이 10분 10분이면은 10분 일찍 가는 거 하겠는데 20분 손해보는 건 조금 너무 손해라서.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Hearthstone Grandmasters European region. We are in our final match of the day, and it is a relegation bracket match. The loser is not relegated. They will play tomorrow in the final relegation match. The winner becomes safe, and currently Bunnyhoppor is leading 1-0 off the back of a very, very quick Rogue win, maybe a world record in Bunnyhoppor speed of games of Hearthstone right now. So pretty impressive, to say the least, and not in just one way.
Yeah, again, very important qualifier being made to your statement there. By Bunnyhoppor speed, yeah, sure. But I'm fairly sure we've seen some like 2020 Edwins on like turn 4 or 5 that have ended the game a lot quicker. Like Rogue just does that sometimes. It's one of the reasons why Rogue and Edwin Van Cleef are so ubiquitous throughout various Hearthstone metas, is that, you know, no matter what your win rate is over the course of a long game, you always have that percentage of games where you just win just by the nature of Rogue in the early game. So very hard for some kind of Rogue not to be some kind of force in the metagame. But Bunnyhoppor, I think, has largely deserved that, not just because he's been on a pretty miserable streak of bad luck, which I think he has, but also because of all the games that he's ground out with that version of Rogue. Like, he has been the master of that deck so far, and he's certainly pulled winning positions out of losing situations by playing extremely well and navigating late game scenarios incredibly well with that deck. So every now and again, yeah, I think he deserves just the giant questing adventure on a platter.
Yeah, well, speaking of potentially grindy decks, we are going to see the Priest for Bunnyhoppor now going up against AyRoK's Demon Hunter once again. And bit of a tough opening hand here for Bunnyhoppor. He could just throw it all. But I don't know if that's if he wants to consider holding on to Apotheosis. And then if you do you think about Wild Pyromancer? Is that just a rabbit hole you shouldn't bother going down, Soto?
First instinct here, and I would rope the living heck out of this mulligan, just so you know. But my first instinct is one keeper Spellkin. After that, I would gradually, step by step, talk myself into various combinations of Pyro and Apotheosis. But Bunny ends up on a full mull, which I find very, very interesting. I do think Spellkin is a really, really nice card to have in the matchup. Not only because it is just a really solid play on turn 5 most of the time, it's a super threatening Apotheosis target that Demon Hunter has to deal with, but also that Cleric of Scales that Bunny has mulliganed into. It's really nice just to have that dragon as an activator in your opening hand, so you can just play this on turn 1.
AyRoK, on the other hand, does have a pretty good opening. 1-2, and also just has Consume Magic sitting in the left side of his hand. Ready and waiting for an opportune moment.
Mana spent.
Box ticked.
You don't pick the ones.
Oh. Yeah. Shaking their head there from AyRoK. It's just the one you don't want to see. It's one card. Any of the others, absolutely fine to great. And then there's just that one. Pretty dead turn, though, for Bunnyhoppor too, honestly.
Yeah, this turn sucks. Nothing doing, really. This is the classic Bunnyhoppor rope. I do feel very reticent to say that these days, because once I said, yeah, this is the classic Bunnyhoppor rope, he's not actually making a decision, he's just using the time to think about the game in general, yada, 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 and then he messaged me and said that there was a genuine decision that he was making that turn. So I'm very, very hesitant to pull that line out now, but I think that was just Bunnyhoppor taking the time that was allocated to him.
Incoming Bunnyhoppor message.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well, Azul gives Bunnyhoppor something else to consider, I guess, this turn. But it does look significantly more playable than the rest of his hand does right now. I don't think he can afford to just Hero Power Pass.
The future is clear.
Agreed. Snap Azul for me.
It's information about the Consume Magic and also the Wand Maker spell. Pretty big deal, actually. He knows that that can be almost ignored for this game.
Yes. But seeing the Consume Magic here is enormous information. That is a really make or break card in a lot of spots, whether you're trying to rely on a taunt, whether you're trying to rely on sticking an Apotheosis minion to the board, sticking a Kaj. All of these things can get punished by Consume Magic. It's one of the best cards in the matchup from the Demon Hunter side. So even though it's not the pick there, just having seen it off the Lazul is extremely crucial information for Bunnyhoppor.
And I actually do really like the mana feeder because he can just hero power draw next turn, put a minion that contests some, does something decent on board, and and most importantly, he does just need card draw. He wants to get to a dragon to activate the cleric, and then to start cooking from there. So I really like this pick overall. AyRoK, on the other hand, does have an option himself of actually just going for either the Soul Shear, or he could just go for weapon but float the mana. A little bit awkward, actually.
Still curious as to what this game looks like with the Spellkin being kept, right? Because Cleric could have potentially been played to cycle, pick up a spell here, and then we'd be potentially even looking at coin Spellkin on the next turn for Bunnyhoppor.
Only if it was the far right one that was kept.
Wait, what?
I'm just
I see what you're saying, right? Yeah. Fairly sure that's not how anything works, but I see what you're saying.
And that's why it's funny, Sol. That's why it's funny.
It's just because there's Demon Hunter on the other side, and then you said like far right one. I was like, wait, Priest Outcast? What are you talking?
Looks like it might just have to be this hero power mana feeder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like,
Not seeing anything that grabs me more.
Apotheosis, but it's pretty unfun.
Yeah, and again, with the information from the Consume Magic, like the tempo Apotheosis is not really a play that you're likely to make this game.
Right.
Just trying to stick a big minion without it immediately attacking is kind of off the table right now because you know about the Consume.
We get that card draw first from this mana feeder could change the turn round because this Soul Shear wasn't always guaranteed just because his weapon was at 3 attack anyway. They could have maybe if you got another 1 maker, something else to go in there, but yep, with the Gladebound, does just swing in. With the Soul Shear.
It's like a kick things off with Renew kind of turn. Could be convinced by just Kaj hero power. Obviously, Kaj is, again, fairly low value as long as you know that that Consume Magic is in hand. So throwing out a Kaj here and just trying to bait the Consume Magic to an extent, because I think it's something that your opponent would go for in this situation, and probably rightly so. If it's in outcast position, they would just take it to cycle it in this spot.
Especially
Definitely has some upside.
With our knowledge of AyRoK's hand, the Consume Magic, like Gladebound, looks pretty good, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think it would pay off pretty well. If Bunnyhoppor is okay at just having a minion that gets silenced, which I think he should be at this point with double Apotheosis in hand.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. So I think maybe you could have gone Renew first there to potentially find something else to do, but I'm not sure what that something else would have been, and I imagine that's what Bunnyhoppor searched for that turn, and having not found it, he just committed to the idea that he was always playing the Kaj, so technically weaving in the hero power, it's like anti-hunter. When you're playing this matchup as Priest, you just weave in those hero powers, maximize your damage, your anti-damage over time.
So there is just that turn of just Consume Magic and Gladebound, of course.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the only option available to him, is it?
I grow impatient.
Certainly isn't. The fact that the Kaj isn't huge means that the Consume Magic isn't a necessity here.
Yeah. He could just do it this way, right? Still,
yeah,
it's
like
the
this.
same turn without the Consume, and you just say, well, yeah, next.
Yeah, I like this. I think this is actually really good discipline from AyRoK.
Hello.
Okay.
So the reset's there. He can play 3 spells, right?
I must
Can.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, with coin.
Yep.
So he can clean up the whole board, if he so chooses, with this Apotheosis Pyro. And he will heal up to full as well.
Indeed.
In worst case, he still has Soul Mirror next turn. Is there any other way he could do this?
There is. He could just Shadow of Death and use one Apotheosis and just trade on board.
True. Maybe that's better.
Which is actually quite appealing because that probably gets the Consume Magic from your opponent. It's interesting because Bunnyhoppor has more information on like both players' mental states than AyRoK does. Because Bunnyhoppor knows the Consume Magic was there, and Bunnyhoppor knows that AyRoK didn't consume magic the card. So Bunnyhoppor can probably quite reasonably surmise that AyRoK is saving the Consume Magic for an Apotheosis minion. So he can just give him the Apotheosis minion here, get the Consume Magic out of his hand, and then land the Pyro Apotheosis later, which is a much more dangerous Apotheosis minion that won't get silenced later.
How good of a proc is that for Pyromancer?
It's pretty insane, actually, yeah. I like it.
Yeah, I feel like Bunnyhoppor is playing Yarla style right now.
He is, yeah, very much so. And I think
could this second Apotheosis get more, though?
Yeah. And I think it's right to do so, honestly. I think this is a relatively new innovation in the matchup where I think early on in the meta, the priests were largely focused on like sticking big minions and then putting Apotheosis on them for healing. Whereas now, more and more over time, since the Pyromancer list has become the dominant one, players have realized that you can just kind of flirt with Disaster like all the way down to like 10 or 12 health and then just go back to 30 as long as you have Pyromancer and Apotheosis in your hand. So I do think it's the right way to play the matchup these days. And Bunnyhoppor just really milking out all of the possible value he can right now.
A little bit unfortunate, although he got the Soul Fragment, of course, the Glaive Bound. A little bit less powerful when you're the priest, unless you can maybe Mirrors under weapon somehow.
Yeah.
Not this lines up that well, does it?
Nope.
Could just steal the Cane and say that's enough. He ends the turn with the Cabal Shadow Priest and the Cane.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
Seems just okay, and right now I think okay is good enough for Bunnyhoppor. He gains a bit of a board, which then has a knock-on effect of making the Pyromancer stronger. If he needs to do the Apotheosis in the near future. Right now we can see AyRoK's hand sucks. Basically, the double Shard Chatter and the Jailer is pretty rubbish. Consume Magic right at this second in time can't even be aimed anywhere to even draw a card.
Let me change your mind.
Indeed. Astutely put, Raven. His hand does indeed suck. I love this no trade, by the way, just leaving as much health on as many minions as possible on the board. That's absolutely what he's interested in right now with the Pyromancer.
Yeah, and it also just makes the Cane killable this turn, so why, right? Like, just push the damage, keep the minions sticking around.
Yep. The time does eventually come where you have to bite the bullet and accept that you need the cycle more than you need to be able to deal with Apotheosis. With
I think he's got one more
magic.
turn.
Okay.
Mainly because he can just go trade into the Cabal, he can play the Shard Chatter, then Hero Power, play Spirit Jailer, and maybe he doesn't even play the Spirit Jailer, he just plays the 4-2 instead.
Time grows short.
Either way, he
can see
can
that.
play Shard Chatter this turn and it wouldn't punish him too hard. So I think he probably, if you can, you probably should.
What more can I ask for?
Is he just going face? Just ignoring this?
Yup. I thought there was some like super wrinkled brain line where he was going to get the weapon in play with the Horde Pillager first and then blow up the entire board so there weren't minions in play for the Pyromancer, but I was going to point out that that rarely matters because the Pyromancer on its own procs so many times that it usually ends up being like, significant healing. But there wasn't even the line. I think AyRoK is just shutting his eyes and hoping there isn't an answer, and yeah, you see the result. You see the result on his face. Bunny is playing Reno Pyromancer this turn.
Very interested what he does with this next spell.
Yeah,
or what
I am
spell
too.
he even chooses, should I say, because the Apotheosis, although is not needed, kind of heals up his other minions.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, there's a certain level of value to that as well, even though it's overkill to an extent.
Yeah.
And also, if he apotheoses 2 separate minions, he knows there's only 1 consume magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing he played there was particularly efficient because he did like technically waste healing on that soul fragment as well. The 2 healing from the actual card just didn't do anything because he was still healing for the 6 that he needed off the last proc.
It's 4 health on this Cabal Shadow Priest must be infuriating for AyRoK.
Agreed. And I think that's why Bunny felt okay just going with the Soul Fragment line, because he could heal up a minion to 4. I think Shard Chatter is quite clearly the biggest thing he was worried about playing around, as well as Hero Power Blade Dance. If AyRoK requires multiples of cards to actually clear the board state efficiently, fine. That's a situation you're fine with leaving him, I think.
I think now's the time, though. I think he might have to bite the bullet and use his consume magic.
Yeah, it's funny because it doesn't actually do anything here, right? Because he's playing Shard Chatter anyway. So
he could consume the 4/4. Yeah. Doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. Which is kind of back to the point of saying, like, sometimes, you might feel like you need it to deal with the Apotheosis problem, but sometimes the card draw can just be more important in the early game. Seems like a good turn for a 6/4.
Would you even bother playing Wave?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I must consider.
I wouldn't hate it because it means the Gladebound might well live for then Apotheosis, but it's definitely not needed. My only worry is if you play Gladebound, then it dies. Although Bunnyhoppor is obviously like ahead in this game right now, his hand does become very slow and rubbish, doesn't it? At least for the immediate future.
Yeah, he's absolutely not out of the woods just yet. I mean, look at all of this damage that's rebuilding in AyRoK's hand right now.
I like the Blade Dance. Don't you face tank any of these minions. Just put it all to the face, catch back up.
It's 9 more face.
It's a big deal, and this is why, although we have seen it, this is why I do like to this is why I do like to remind people that just because a priest gets back up to full, whether it's that kind of pyro turn or an apotheosis on, say, a Murazond, for the massive dragon heal sort of thing, like you can still win if you've got cards left, and AyRoK has. Okay, there's soul fragments in there, but like 19 cards in his deck still. He has some insane powerful turns available to him if he can get there.
He still has 2 skulls, 2 marrow slices, 2 twin slices left in his deck. Like, he has so much damage potential still.
Your mind is not your own.
Bunny just really needs to find Draconic Studies or a dragon, because these clerics are clogging up his hand unnecessarily right now. He really just has 0 options in hand currently.
Can he preemptively play this Apotheosis?
He can.
I just think if he doesn't play it this turn and whiffs for another turn, he might actually struggle.
Yeah, the reason why I don't necessarily like it is because he has Soul Mirror in hand, so he can, at very worst, get like a big burst of healing from Apotheosis Soul Mirror. The problem with that in this matchup, though, is that so many of the Demon Hunter's minions are symmetrical that you can't,
flat,
you can't get good trades with an Apotheosis Soul Mirror play. So I don't mind it.
But now there's claps.
Oh,
okay.
Brutal. There was 5 fragments in the deck at the start of the turn.
Yeah. Does he even go for it? He could just Shard Shatter and Lapidary instead. Is that not just better?
Demons. Demons.
His hand is then 7 mana 5/5 and nothing else.
But his board is good.
Yes.
And the minions are dead. So
yes.
I grow.
Pros and cons, Raven. Pros and cons. I don't know. This turn is really, really hard, is my honest answer to the question.
Yeah, I think I would go for the charge. I think I would just be upset, but go for it. Because you have a 5/5, you have two 5/5s and a 3/2 on the board. Like, that is pretty sick.
No, not quite. But I get what you're saying.
Oh, sure, okay, yeah. With the damage on the 1/5, yeah.
Yes. So Bunny goes back to full for the second time this game. Where are the dragons?
Okay, well, that's card draw.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a big deal, right? It's literally all Bunnyhoppor wants. If he does it this turn, though, he can't Soul Mirror. And maybe this is just a Soul Mirror turn. 7 mana, like, kill 2 5/5s seems okay to me.
I actually think the fact that the other minion is Kayn means that I kind of like that turn, because you can just use Kayn as removal for one of the 5/5s this turn alongside the card draw. I quite like that.
I just like it because, like, just don't take any damage, right?
Well,
I think Bunnyhoppor, this is more, for me, this is more like Bunnyhopper's going to be able to starve him out because he's seen so many cards now. Militia's gone, one Lapidary's gone, one Glavebound.
So I think I disagree with that, because his best resource right now is his health. He has all of it. The thing he doesn't have is actual playable Hearthstone cards. And I think stretching out Soul Mirror for a little bit longer by investing 5 of your health into tanking damage, I think that's something that you can afford to do when your biggest resource is your health at the moment. Okay. Oh. Okay.
What spells are even left for Bunnyhoppor now? Because Soul Mirror's gone. The Double Apotheosis is gone. I don't think... It wasn't generated, right?
He has, I think, just those 3. I don't see anything else he could have hit. Yeah, it's just those. Everything else is a minion.
This game?
He did use the death, yeah.
Oh, right.
He deathed the Glavebound on the other side.
Oh, he
remember?
did. Yep. Choosing where to go here for this next spell. He might not want to play both this turn. Although personally, I like Draconic Studies. I was going to draw, okay.
I like this and then Kayn, I think. Yeah, I like this. Like, this is similar to the turn that he could have had last turn, right? Where he just uses Kayn as removal and leaves up a 5/5. I think it very possibly should have been the turn last turn, so he would just still have a Soul Mirror in his hand. I don't know. Maybe it ends up being the same thing, and he just Soul Mirrors this turn instead, and it doesn't make too much of a difference.
Because then, like, then the Shard Chatter comes down that turn, right? Clears this board, and then the board looks the same, and then maybe the Soul Mirror happens, and then it's just whichever way ends up being equal.
Heads up play from AyRoK. He knows that a dragon has just been drawn to activate the hand from Bunnyhoppor, so there's a good chance that that dragon is Murozond. Therefore, just loading up with Eldrazi Warblades and Twin Slice is not really the best plan. But at the same time, like, what other plan does he have right now? Wait for Marrow Slicer, I guess?
Right. I did wonder just for a second if we were in Dragon Queen Alexstrasza territory.
2 Spellkins, 2 Wandmakers are the only things shutting that down right now.
With only 9 cards left, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. There's the skull. Okay.
We're in. That's the game started. Or at least restarted, maybe.
Panthara can come down here, as can the Glavebound. I think we might just be approaching the point where you can count the damage and it doesn't quite get there for AyRoK. He does still have a Wandmaker left, so if that adds another Twin Slice, maybe he's in business. But when you count the increments of just healing for 2 for Bunnyhoppor in the middle, I think it's quite hard to start adding this damage up to end the game.
And also, if he's going to make the read on the Murozond, then there's a turn in which Bunnyhoppor can potentially get an Eldraki Warblade swing. Even if it's just a small one. But
that's the problem, right? Like, I think AyRoK has been smartly waiting for Marrow Slicer to really go off because he doesn't want to go off on the Warblades, but both Marrow Slicers are just in his bottom 6 right now, which is a horrible outcome for him to have in the matchup against Priest. So this Murazon now gives Skull plus Warblades.
Seems like a pretty good Murazon to me, so... Unless you're scared of fatigue damage.
Yeah, don't think that's likely to be a concern.
Does AyRoK still have a Blade Dance?
Yes, one Blade Dance remaining.
Okay, okay. We've still got a game then.
Yeah. But I think he does have to stick minions this game. I don't think straight up burst damage gets there. Weave in those hero powers, Bunny.
I like the trade here on the 2-3. Just reduce the damage down. I think Bunnyhoppor's presenting a ton of damage, especially if he plays one of his 2-drops, but he's going to go for the heal.
Okay, that's the kicker. If this is another Twin Slice, that could be a huge boost to AyRoK's win rate. Not it.
Yeah, the problem is, I think he needed that draw to be the Blade Dance, honestly.
Yeah, I think
and then
so
the
too.
next draw to be the One-Maker Twin Slice. Because he's just facing down a ton of damage, which means he might have to Glaive Bound a minion here. I guess if he goes Twin Slices now and goes face, then he obviously survives. He's got a lifesteal weapon. But I do think if he plays one Twin Slice, then he plays them all.
Agreed.
It's just take as much health as possible, right? There's no point floating mana.
Well, I mean, there is still that Blade Dance remaining, though, so maybe just having access to the Twin Slice, especially with 2 Marrow Slicers left remaining as well, like, maybe that can still be impactful later on.
But it's the later on part. It means he would pretty much have to, like, Skull Marrow Slicer Blade into Marrow Slicer Blade Dance, right?
I mean, later on has to happen if he's going to win the game. Like, he's not winning it now. Like, the later has to occur, or he's just not winning.
Oh, so much damage. But Bunnyhoppor does this renew.
Yep. Fortunately, I don't think he can afford to point it at a minion here to really go like fishing for Apotheosis hard way with the Sethic.
I think you're more than happy here to just point it at your face. Power Word Feast just to make the minions as big as possible, potentially. If he doesn't go for one maker first.
Right. Does enable a pretty insane trade on board for one of his big minions into the Glaive Bound if he wants to go that way.
We could even Power Word Feast a ton and make Blade Dance even harder to get rid of, like to go through.
It's a good point too, yeah. The other option is just to set up for a Sethic chain if he needs it.
Yep. Oh, wave. They make the trades pretty good even if he wants them, or he could arguably ignore these minions now if he wants and just go face. I don't think 2 damage. Oh, I guess the 2-1 trade, right? That doesn't change the numbers much.
Yep, agreed. He's still more than wide enough to be resistant to the Blade Dance. Still
with a trade.
Comfortably setting up lethal as well. 16 health, taunt in play, giant board, Blade Dance drawn.
The opposite way round would have been such a big difference.
Yep.
But we can see it's not going to be enough. Bunnyhoppor takes game number 2 in a very close one. It required multiple health resets on Bunnyhoppor's priest side there. And he still didn't look completely clear with a potential Blade Dance being drawn in that previous turn from AyRoK. Would have made that game look a little bit different at least. But so far, Bunnyhoppor's looking good now with only his mage left over.
Yeah, and that was certainly a nail biter. Obviously, with Bunnyhoppor resetting as many times as he did, I think AyRoK probably did somewhere in the region of 50 plus damage that game.
Sure.
He got him down to low 10s and then high 10s again, and then all the way back down to low 10s again. So yeah, the region of 50 to 60 damage over the course of the game, which is pretty insane amount to do. But even then, with double Marrow Slicers still left in his deck, that's brutal if you're AyRoK and you're facing down Relegation as someone who was really counting on Grandmasters here to potentially be his big break, because he's not a player with a big history behind him. He's not a player with at least like career-defining stream in his back pocket that he can fall back on. Like, he is clearly dedicated to making Grandmasters work, and you can see how much it means to him. And these relegation games, when you have everything on the line, like Bunny has felt like he's had the short end of his stick a couple of times, but double Marrow Slicer in your bottom 5 against Priest, that is not the game that you want to be playing with relegation on the line.
Yeah, a little bit rough there. Could have been maybe squeezed a little bit more damage into a few less turns to really put the pressure on Bunnyhoppor. But this mean we are moving on to game number 3, and AyRoK's taking a break from Demon Hunter. It's not treating him too nicely in this series, so he is going to be going for Mage, which equals a Mage Mirror Zottel. AyRoK is going to be playing the list I lean towards. There's no Devolving Missiles in there, but the Arcane Intellect and that Natural Conjurer's Calling is the list I'm more of a fan of. And on the other side of that, Bunnyhoppor is going to be playing a similar list, but with that one Firebrand, we've seen a few players mess around with this week especially.
Yeah, Firebrand has kind of gone through the ringer. It started off really, people, when it was announced, it was one of the reasons why I think people even tried this deck to begin with, right? That it gave everyone that Flame Waker vibe, and everyone got really excited about, a literal tempo mage. I think it's why we still largely call it tempo mage to this day, is that was the design of the archetype in the first place, to just make something more akin to tempo mage back in the day, where you did have all these efficient tempo swing turns with Flame Waker and the like. But very quickly, people realized that what was actually important was the Sorcerer's Apprentice engine alongside those cheap spell engines to be able to keep the deck going. And Flame Waker was very rapidly cut out of the deck, but then in recent weeks it's been creeping its way back in again because of some of that utility that it does have. In the mirror match, it can be effective. Against Druid, it can be effective. Obviously, against some of the aggro decks like Face Hunter and Stealth Rogue, Weapon Rogue, it's enormous in those matchups as well. So pretty storied history with Firebrand throughout these weeks of GM so far.
Well, let's kick it off and see what's going to happen in this game. Bunnyhoppor currently leading 2-0, and this puts his Grandmaster's safety all easy here if he gets a win. 3-0 in this match. He's in. He's safe. And I think a sigh of relief from many viewers and fans, honestly, because to see Bunnyhoppor go, it would be as close as we're going to get to see the repeat of what happened in a previous season where Hunter Ace left, which I think was a shock to a lot of players. And I think Bunnyhopper's the next best thing, or the next worst thing, I guess, depending on, you know what I mean, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Next best thing in comparison. So it would be a shock if I had to name one player from European Grandmasters that was going to get relegated. Bunnyhoppor would be bottom of that list. I would never have guessed, but he is in that position right now. AyRoK still has a chance to fight back. We have just come off the back of a reverse sweep from Psycho in the previous match, so it can be done.
And you know me, Raven, I'm perfectly willing to annoy some people, so I will. I think, just generally having the big names with the most history as the Grandmasters and the ones that we want to protect, right, isn't necessarily the best way to be going about it. I think there are some bigger names in Grandmasters who are kind of lazy at this point, who are phoning it in and aren't particularly well motivated. And if it came down to losing one of those versus losing AyRoK, I would go to bat for AyRoK, because I think, maybe if he isn't at the absolute highest possible standards of a top-tier Hearthstone player, he clearly cares and he's clearly willing to put the work in. And I think if we had an ecosystem full of players who are willing to do that, things would improve very, very rapidly. But Bunnyhoppor does not fit that category whatsoever. Bunnyhoppor is not phoning it in. Bunnyhoppor is a consummate professional, and I think he would be an absolute tragic loss to Grandmasters at this point.
Yeah, I agree, and something I've enjoyed about AyRoK, especially, for example, in the last couple of games, I think he has actually played well. He's just losing, which happens, guess what? But I also think he has improved over time as well, even in just the short space of this season. So we'll see if he can hang on. It does mean either way, the loser has a lifeline, as they will play Warmer in the last match tomorrow to decide everything. But for now, this Mage Mirror is underway. One maker on curve seems fine. There is an option for the one thief with the magic trick, but again, I think one maker just reliably fills out the more, or gives him the more options in the turns going forward.
You don't pick the one, silly.
Responded to in kind by AyRoK.
Oh.
It does not look like this is going to be one of those mage mirrors that just straight up ends because one of the players has an enormous blowout early in the game. Like, neither of these players really feel like they're building towards anything spectacular straight away.
Yeah. Do you want to build towards some kind of spectator way, though, as we don't get to see the
Thalnos lab partner Astromancer Solarian.
Okay, thanks. We're going to have a radio subtle calling for the rest of the game while we get the spectator bug fixed. Sorry about this, guys. Trust me, I also cannot see it and would like to. So we're in the same boat here, viewers.
Yeah, so it's between Solarian and Lab Partner. Obviously, Solarian is Solarian, so you want to pick it. However, Lab Partner lets you play 0-mana Lab Partner this turn and just immediately cram session, which is kind of insane.
Time runs out on me.
Yeah, anything that creates a cram session this turn is pretty appealing to me. It's like starts to be rule number one of the mage is, can you get spell damage cram session off this turn? If yes, you normally do. But he has gone for the Astromancer. And they're not going to go for the cram session.
Indeed. This devolving missiles could now end up being pretty clutch, but AyRoK's going to turn it down for Arcane Intellect of his own. Which means Bunny's little gambit here is going to pay off huge because he now rips the lab partner off the top as well for some ridiculously efficient card draw this turn.
It's tough, isn't it? Because the draw, I don't mind there from AyRoK at all. And also the idea that, well, you can still devolve in the Prime next, the Solari next turn and stop it shuffling in. But this leaves the spell damage on the board. No! Sol!
Ogre Magi, Stuart, lab partner.
It's always the Ogre Magi, isn't it?
It's always Ogre McGee. What are you worried about?
Ogre McGee. Olga.
Pretty...
Stuart,
pretty
Olga.
Clear. Pretty clear lab partner for me.
I don't know who lab partner can be. Lee? just picking names.
I mean, you're forcing it at this point, Raven. You've got to let it happen organically. Come on. I liked playing
I'm the type
it
of
this
person
turn.
who will make a joke and then say, get it? Straight away. So, I think forcing it's okay. Lab partner again there from AyRoK. Does have the double giant now, so if he can just get these a little bit cheaper.
I did like playing the lab partner from Bunny on the previous turn.
Oh, God.
Alright, sure.
Actually pretty sick. Yeah, all I would be thinking about now if I was AyRoK was, how do I get these mana giants to play with conjurers as fast as possible? Because that would, I think, is plan 1 right now.
Plan 1?
It's not plan A.
Plan 1? Why is that funny?
I don't know. But I find it funny that you find it funny because it's a weird thing to find funny.
Yeah, we've seen
I didn't even
some...
know he was seeing her looking at a spell.
We've seen... Oh, sorry, you are going to have to poke me every time this happens. Yeah, because I just stare at my spectator feed, so I'm not aware that anything's going wrong on the actual feed that you guys are watching.
Is it cold in here?
Hopefully, Tempo Shenval lab partner going to come down now as well. And this, of course, does start the Elemental Allies chain, which he can go off with Mana Giant.
Yeah, it's a little bit sketch because obviously to complete the Elemental Allies now, you have to expose your Mana Giant without Conjurers calling it immediately, and you also don't really play a Shambhala turn, potentially. Although I guess you could actually do both with the way the mana lines up right now, right? If everything goes perfectly, you can still potentially like Ray Mana Giant, particularly if you play if you draw Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've got 2 words for you, Sol. Sorcerer's Apprentice makes this turn. Oh.
Through the Apprentice, all things are possible, Raven.
Oh, it says explode.
Lab partner to the coin Raz. He's going to be able to at least put something on board. It doesn't really go beyond that. Because, yeah, it kills the imps, but that's about it.
Right.
But he does just have AyRoK play the
Raz
and
the Apprentice was drawn.
Those were
the
two
Apprentice was drawn. Incanter's Flow. It was up against a Frost Nova there, but I agree with just taking the cheap one here for sure. Frost Nova is a decent resource. But I think just taking the cheap one is just far too ridiculous not to go with here. Mana Giant Elemental Allies is now going to complete as well, which means the Ray of Frost additional draw
and
is going to be able to end this Raz. Cram Session as well. This is just a game ender, Raven. This turn ends it.
Not too long ago, Sol was saying he thought this wasn't going to be a game where one player just has a early blowout and wins. Does turn 6 count? Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't matter. We're here now. That is incredible.
Solarian, Azure Explorer, Blood Mage Thanos.
Incredible. Look at this turn. Even though the Mana Giant is left open, well, fine, kill the Mana Giant. There's about 20 million stats still on the board after that.
Yep.
It was literally Sorcerer's Apprentice needed off the top to make this go from a good turn to a game-winning turn and a Grandmasters safety turn for Bunnyhoppor looking at this. And this,
yeah, what do you even do?
Is it?
What do you even do? It's an absolute miserable scenario from AyRoK.
No Nova. It's a shame for AyRoK, but I don't think he can dig himself out of this.
Nope.
He would need exactly Nova into a prime in like off the top next turn, whether there's one in there or not. That's what he would need.
He can ping the lab partner and then conjure the Apprentice for the Doomsayer slots.
Sure.
It's an out, I guess. Even there, he'd already spent the 1 mana that turn, right?
Yeah,
so that wasn't even available.
Instantly, yeah.
Yeah.
AyRoK's not going to go down without a fight, though.
There's just 17 showing already, 18 with the ping, but there is a Conjurer's Calling, which is probably the final nail in the coffin, at least for today, for AyRoK. Because he does still have another chance, even if this one goes down. And actually, that's about as low as one can roll on the Conjurer's Calling.
It is, isn't it? Apart from dupes, of course. Like, pretty brutal.
You don't pick the ones.
Like, you can throw the 8-1 in the mix in certain scenarios, but yeah, that's about as bad as it gets.
Now AyRoK does have Mana Giant Conjurers.
Yep.
I have seen crazier things, especially considering Batterhead is a card.
Yo, Batterhead is a card right now. Oh my goodness. Good lord, that's a card.
All in due time.
It's just got to, right?
Yeah, it still needs to be Batterhead Plus, though, right? Because you need help to get through the 4/4 taunt, first and foremost.
It does.
And you
Batterhead,
still only...
Walking Fountain, easiest game of AyRoK's life. What was he going for with this?
Like Magic Trick into Rare Frost or something? I don't know.
I guess, maybe Nova.
Yeah. Like, genuinely, I don't know what the 2-card outcome was outside of, like, the one that we specifically came up with, which even then doesn't necessarily feel like winning,
there it
right?
is. And, again, all the respect in the world for AyRoK, but he's going to be the loser, but it does mean that Bunnyhoppor is now safe. He can breathe a sigh of relief, even if we don't get to see him doing it. He's not on camera for that match, but that is... We spoke about AyRoK's season, and it wasn't looking great, and then he pulled it back just a little bit, managed to get a few wins, looked a bit more confident, but that is a match that is going to tear that confidence down if I ever saw one, because one, if he won, he's safe, he's in Grandmasters next season, fantastic, but even if you lose it, he's still got his life tomorrow. But the way he lost it as well, and not even particularly his fault in any way, but that is such a rough game to end on. Oh, I hope AyRoK can pull it together for tomorrow. But congratulations to Bunnyhoppor most of all. Of course, he gets his safety in Grandmasters.
Yeah, huge deal for Bunny. Obviously, huge deal for fans of Bunny as well, who I'm sure there are plenty. But this is the situation now. The relegation gauntlet continues. Different story from what we had last season, where it was the collapse all the way from match 1 all the way into the relegation spot. This time, Bunnyhoppor fails at the first hurdle, but he does escape with his second life, and that means that AyRoK and Wama are going to play things out on match 3, which is largely, if you want to phrase it very, very clinically, the expected outcome, because they're the two players who start in the worst position, right? They're the two players who have come in from Division B. It's just obviously still extremely stressful and extremely unfortunate for those two players to be down there. It is, of course, now a French